Walmart employees are about to make some money. Yes, that's right. The employer of 1.6 million US workers, that is Walmart, just announced that they will raise the wages for hourly workers in the United States by as much as $2 an hour. This per Reuters. Walmart's new wage hikes lift its average hourly wage pay to $17.50 from the current $17 an hour and will reflect in March 2nd paychecks. The minimum wage will rise by as much as $2 for staff at its US stores to a range of $14 to $19 an hour, depending on location, a spokesperson said, adding that about 340,000 workers at about 3,000 stores will be eligible. Now, the federal minimum wage, it's still holding steady at $7.25 an hour, and at least 20 states don't have a minimum wage above $7.25. And because Walmart's geographical location is largely in the South, this wage hike could be huge for workers. This per the Wall Street Journal. Walmart has a more rural and southeastern store base compared with some of its US rivals, including Target and Costco. That means more of its 4,600 stores and warehouses are in states such as Texas, Mississippi, and Georgia that haven't adopted higher minimum wages in recent years. Now, the company's move could lead to wage pressure in lower income areas where it is one of the main employers. Some economists have found that Walmart's market power is a primary determinant of wage levels in local economies where they have a large presence, especially at other retailers and grocery stores. And it's really cool because Walmart's wage increase, well, it isn't really a product of generosity as much as it is a product of a tight labor market and heightened competition. Companies like Amazon, Costco, and Target have been offering minimum pay of at least $15 an hour since 2020, really luring workers away from Walmart. And so, do you remember how Amazon workers, they reacted when learning that their wages would be increased?
Back in November 1st, we are also establishing a new Amazon minimum wage of $15 an hour.
This is game changing for a lot of people. And it's also very interesting that progressives in Congress predicted the impact of the domino effect that we're seeing with Walmart today. Back when Amazon upped its wages, well, Bernie said this: "Today, I want to give credit where credit is due. And that is that, Mr. Bezos and Amazon have done the right thing," Sanders said in an interview. Sanders said Amazon's efforts were likely to have a ripple effect all over the economy by putting pressure on competitors like Walmart, where the starting hourly wage is $11 to follow suit. And that was in October 2018. Not only does this make a difference in the lives of hundreds of thousands of Amazon employees, it also sends a message to the fast food industry, the airline industry, and the retail industry in general, that the time is now to begin paying workers a living wages. And this impact will continue to be felt because despite the current layoffs in tech and banking right now, well, the market's gonna see wages continue to rise for the exact reason that Bernie noted. More than half of the states in the US are set to lift their minimum wages in the coming year, although due to the tight labor market, employers have in many cases needed to offer pay significantly higher than the legal minimum in order to attract and retain employees. But of course, I have to note, don't get it twisted, even with those gains, the American worker still is struggling. $15 an hour still wouldn't offer a living wage to a single adult and families of four in many regions throughout the United States. Jenks, does this still sound like good news to you?
Yeah, it is. It's definitely good news, but we're like inching towards good news, right? And by the way, everyone in cable news will find this to be atrocious news because they're worried about inflation because that could mean that the Fed would raise interest rates again. And then their beloved stock market portfolios might go down a little bit. So they're like, oh no, wages are going up for average Americans. That could hurt my portfolio. Then I would only have 1.7 billion instead of 1.75 billion. So that's what you'll see a lot of on cable news, if they cover this at all, but my guess is they will never cover this. Okay, so now as to who should get credit here. Look, earlier in the show, I was criticizing progressives for not taking nearly enough action on just about anything. But in this case, you have to give tremendous credit to Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna. So originally, they had the Bezos Act where they were pushing Amazon to go to $15 minimum wage. And at the time, mainstream media and everyone else yelled at him, made fun of them, And we quoted those articles for you back in the day where they're like, oh, what does he think he's gonna do? Actually get Amazon to raise their wages? But he put so much pressure on, they both did, that Amazon buckled and they did raise the wages. And that's the video you guys saw. When it was announced that Amazon had buckled to Sanders and Khanna, the crowd went nuts. Those are Amazon workers going, yes. It's one of the very, very few times in my 25 years of covering politics that I've ever seen a politician actually get something done that made a difference in people's lives. Walmart has 1.6 million workers across the country. And we said at the time, I think I interviewed Ro Khanna, they said it in the quotes that Adrian just read to you. It's not just about Amazon, because once Amazon goes to $15 an hour, they're gonna be your ally in pushing everyone else to $15 an hour, otherwise they have a competitive disadvantage. And that's exactly what happened. And now, because Walmart's trying to keep up with Amazon and others, Walmart raises their wages. So a giant thank you to Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna for making that happen against all of the skeptics and the cynics. The skeptics will always tell you you're never gonna get any change. Don't bother, don't do anything. Just sit back down on your couch. That's the #1 goal of mainstream media, is to make sure that you don't try to actually get something done. Well, they defied them and they did get something done, and it's had a great effect. Now, all the other politicians, back to the usual. They've waited so long on minimum wage that $15 minimum wage is soon going to be too low, right? Because they just wouldn't raise it, they wouldn't raise it, they wouldn't raise it, because they're all taking money from the National Restaurant Association and other organizations like the Chamber of Commerce. So when Bernie Sanders introduced the amendment for $15 an hour to attach to the COVID relief bill, not only all Republicans, but 8 Democrats voted against it. 8 Democratic senators, including Biden's top allies, because Biden's a liar and he was never in favor of $15 minimum wage. Coons and Carper, the 2 Delaware senators, they were not in favor of it. The Democratic Party, all the leadership, total liars. They were never in favor of it. And Obama did nothing for 8 years. Biden's done nothing for 2 years. And of course the Republicans hate the minimum wage. And so we have all the politicians, as usual, with the exception of the 2 that I mentioned, sitting on their hands and going, well, I guess after decades of us not doing anything, people have started to act on their own. And it's because of workers' power, the threatened strikes, and so many other things that have happened are now finally having an effect. Great, take power in your own hands. Do whatever you gotta do to gather as workers and to fight back. And by the way, a lot of times your union bosses will tell you, don't. Management's so lovely, just do whatever they say, right? No, that's why the Starbucks guys had to organize on their own. So many people had to organize on their own because no one in power will ever come to help you. So I'm gonna go back and double down on giving Bernie Sanders and Ro Khanna tremendous credit for and making a difference in this case that actually puts food on the table for millions of American workers. So God bless their hearts. So I can't, it's so hard to think of another example of a politician actually making a positive difference in your life.
Absolutely, it's a real life example of what a rising tide raises all yachts. It's beautiful.
I wish we had yachts to raise. One day, the struggle continues. But today's a good day, this is good news.
Absolutely.